Before your brilliant medical and yogic career, you finished a degree in philosophy. So what determined this radical shift from the mind to the,
I loved philosophy, and I still do. I feel like I lost my virginity to philosophy. You know, that's it. Really got to me. And I was at Oxford, and my teachers were eminent people, and they thought I was really good. And it occurred to me, I was studying the foundations of mathematics. Where do numbers come from? What are these strange things? What do we do with them? And I wandered into a bookstore, and there was a book by a man called Patanjali. And it turns out he was the first grammarian. He wrote the first book on yogi. He was also a physician. And it seemed to me that the foundations of mathematics probably lay in grammar, because nobody does math who doesn't speak. You know, it is like language, and grammar has rules for well-formed sentences and, you know, parts of speech and functions, conjunctions, and all these things. And so does logic, so does math. And the language came first, and so it's probably where the origins were. And I really went to India to learn Sanskrit, to become someone who could understand the foundations of mathematics. And I was there maybe 3 weeks, and I realized I was never going to learn Sanskrit better than the average 3-year-old speaking Hindi. There was no way I was ever going to do that. And even if I learned it as best I could, there would be others who said, listen, I learned this when I was 3. Let me tell you what that really means, you know, in a way that I would never know. So I began looking just for enlightened people, never mind enlightening myself with this knowledge about the foundations of mathematics. Who is enlightened and can pass it on to me? And I found a number of them. Some tried to fool me, some were making great efforts to fool themselves, and some really were the real thing. They really were. Amongst them was Mr. Iyengar. His book was handed to me by a drug addict in Bombay, who was sitting on the sidewalk, an English guy, the sidewalks of Bombay. He said, here, man, you're into yoga, aren't you? I hadn't gone to medical school yet, but people called me doc for some reason. You know, it's a little like an expatriate. Yeah. It wasn't really expatriate, but hippies and beatniks and stuff moving through. And it was like a community. And I looked at his book and I said, this is head and shoulders above anything I've ever seen in yoga. And my girlfriend at the time, I wasn't married, my girlfriend said, hey, you know, he's only a couple of 100 miles away. So it took us about a week to get it together, and we leapt on a train, we went to see him. And long story short, it was a very electric meeting. And I just rented a room in a hotel waiting for him. He was gone for a week. I had to wait to see him. But when I did, I just kept the room in the hotel for like a year. You know, very expensive, like $1 a week, or I don't know, you know, exorbitant. And he was very generous, highly intelligent, and very perceptive too, highly intuitive. And when we met, he said, why are you here? I said, I want to do your yoga. He said, why do you want to do my yoga? I said, because I want to heal. He said, you want to heal? Challenging me a third time. I said, yes. He said, that's my great thing. Come on in. So it was a really nice experience to get to know him and his people, and many of the others are delightful, some of whom I still know.
So at that time you wanted to understand mathematics, and then you moved to medicine.
Yeah, and Mr. Iyengar was the embodiment of this. From the body comes the mind. I mean, one of his many sayings was, my body is my temple. And he goes on, he says, and the asana are my prayers. Oh. So it's the body, you know, what's the word? Chtonically, out of one comes the other. Out of his body comes his spirit.
Mens sana in corpore sano, as we had in
what is that? What does that translate?
Mens sana in a healthy mind, sane mind in a healthy body. Latin, it's Latin.
Yeah, that's Latin. Now I recognize mens sana. Yeah.
Mens sana in corpore sano. Yes, that's it.
And asana. Well, that makes a lot of sense to me, because we don't really have much to say without our bodies. I was thinking about that a couple of weeks ago too, and now our muscles are really all we have control over. Our smiles, our speech, the way our eyes move, breathing, everything we do. it's just the most direct connection between our intentions and what we get done is our muscles. That's what it is. That's the most, there ain't much else. And everything comes from that. And yoga obviously uses that biggest, heaviest of our systems, our muscles.
We speak about control of our thoughts.
We do, to a certain extent, we do with our thoughts. We can't, not completely, obviously. It's very, very difficult. I mean, that's Patanjali, Ataya Yoga Nushasanam.
Yes.
You know, now, what is it? Yoga, it's another sutra. It's Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
Chitta Vritti Nirodha.
Yoga
yes.
is the inhibition of modifications of the mind.
Of the mind.
And you
yes.
can do it. The mind does count to some extent. It's the only other thing, your thoughts, your emotions, it's the less direct control. You can do it. You can say, uh-oh, I'm worried about her and me. I better stay away from her, you know. you know, we can control it that way. And things that you don't think you should happen, you can make sure they, right, anyway, go far to be pretty sure they don't happen. But with the thoughts, it's much more direct. And with the muscles, much more direct, yeah, I think.
Thank you for this. How did you experience those times of change from one career to another, from the mind to the body?
I think sheer bewilderment on the one hand. You know, sometimes you don't know where you're at all. It's like standing in a crowd naked.
Yes.
Everyone can see you and you can see nothing. And you feel that way. You feel like you're really exposed because you don't know which way the wind blows. You don't know where you are and where you're going. You don't even really know how to evaluate where you've been. And on the other hand, it's something Nietzsche said. Fishing boats know exactly where they're going, how long they will stay, and when they will return. I'm paraphrasing. Men of war take their orders on the high seas. They don't know where they're going until they get there. You know, it's a different story. And that's the way you feel sometimes when you're making these big changes. All of a sudden, great insights come to you that never would have come if you weren't so completely disheveled and unaware of what you want to do and how you want to do it. That, you know, being chaos is its own ordering system.
Oh, thank you for that. I really, that is a personal
yeah, that's really very personal, but that's what I have found, is that in the moments of the greatest confusion, clarity comes, a different clarity.
I experience these times of chaos very much, and I know what it means for those who are in their the redefinition, change, movement, questioning themselves what that means. It's really a support, although we don't know what the final answer is.
No.
But knowing that we can navigate those.
There's a song by Leonard Cohen that goes, he's talking about Jesus, and he says, when he knew for certain only drowning men could see him, he said, all men shall be sailors then, until the sea shall free them.
Oh, so beautiful. Poetry.
But he himself was broken, and before the heavens over, he sank before your wisdom like a stone.
Poetry, passion, intelligence. You are a wonderful, wonderful example.
I think
Thank you, and inspiration.
It's his insight. It's a wonderful one, yeah.
Oh, thank you. So I was considering to ask you, what are your advices for these times of change, these times of life? It seems that everybody is going at one point to go through such chaotic times, and it looks like the entire world is going right now through a revolution, like a transition, and in a very steep pace. This AI revolution is asking a lot of questions and is putting a lot of challenge on everybody, on redefining themselves as human beings, also as profession. And even the profession of medicine, of medical doctors, is questioned right now.
Sure.
Like, it seems the idea is, what will the doctors of the future do or learn? So,
well, there are, I think, two things that come to my mind. One is someone asked, an intelligent AI worker asked, what would you rather have? A doctor who's seen 200 cases, or AI that's seen 2 million? And of course, you'd rather have someone who's seen 2 million, but, I mean, well, that's one example. And the other one is this highly intelligent man who really is like a founder of AI says, well, when the AI apparatus has a goal, it also develops sub-goals. Well, how do I get this goal? Let us say lower pollution in the environment. How do we get there? And the AI then has these sub-goals. Well, I have to do this step and this step and this. One of those sub-goals is going to be, how do I get some power? Because it's through power that I'll be able to accomplish these other things. So the AI, there's no question in my mind, has the capacity and the inclination to overcome us, to get some power over us. There's no question about it. But when I look at it, the things I think that really are great about AI right now is that it can do your research for you.
Yes.
I don't think I want it to come to my conclusions. I certainly don't want it to synthesize things the way is commonly done, because that's what it will do. It'll do whatever it's been exposed to the most times and integrate A, B, and C to get something like aardvark, you know, that makes sense, but isn't necessarily brilliant or helpful. So it's a quote of Hegel comes to mind. The owl of Minerva takes flight when civilization is at twilight. In other words, it's when things are going to rack and ruin that suddenly there's a theme we're coming up with here. Yeah. That's when you get the insight. And I think it's true of AI, and it's true, pardon me if I offend anybody, but of religion. That people are coming to the point where they're saying, you know, why should one being be responsible for all of this? Just how long is his beard now? You know, how long can it get? You know, he's been around a long time. Who does his fingernails? You know, who are we talking about here? You know, the medievals asked questions like, exactly when does the communion turn into the flesh of Christ? Is it here or here? And they had the same, again, in a time of great turmoil and upheaval. Mm-hmm. They came to the same thing. And we are in it. And what I say is, there's really at least one solution I see for humankind, and that is trust. If we could ever trust each other, then we wouldn't need these big buildups of all these terrible things, and we would give some our neighbors, because we have the instinct to share. Many studies in nature and elsewhere show that the most primitive people, without any knowledge of the golden rule or anything like that, they also know what fairness is, and they respect it, and they like it. And they punish their peers who don't exhibit it. But if there were real trust, that would be a different story. Now, that's an if. The only way to achieve it, of course, is to be trustworthy. The only way to get anybody to be trusting is be trustworthy. And the only way to do that, at this point, probably, is to train our children to be trustworthy. Above everything else. Say what you believe to be true. You know, do what you say, or explain thoroughly how you couldn't. So I think that, to me, that's the biggest answer we have. When it comes to AI, I don't know. According to Sinclair and people up at Harvard, we are developing ways for ourselves to become immortal, so that people will no longer die. It's to some of my friends, it's around the corner. You know, it's going to be, maybe we won't be able to enjoy it, but, you know, within 100 years or so, people will know how to self-perpetuate. And so, like the machines, we who must die salute them, but we will be just as immortal as the machines are. The tragedy of it is, there will be no more evolution without death. We need death to, you know, clean out the species and improve it. That's how it works.
Yes.
And without it, things will come to a standstill. And those other creatures who will die, soon, with evolution working for them, they will overtake us and the machines. Yes. So that's the way I look at that.
Surely there is now an AI or a part of AI who read all your studies and knows every little word of what you wrote and what you said and what you did.
For sure. Me and 10 million others.
10 million others, exactly. What do you think this AI, Dr. Lauren Fishman, will miss?
Will miss? What won't it have?
Knowing everything.
Yeah.
Everything that you might even forget.
It's very interesting. What it won't have are those animal parts, those things that come from our ancestors, near and distant. They won't have a conscience. They won't have a sense of that irrational attraction that we find between people. I mean sexual attraction, yes, but not just sexual attraction. The intellectual attraction, the curiosity, the desire to know somebody else. And the fact that out of this 1 million or 10 million cases that they have, in my life, some stand out. Some people come out of the maze of all the people you know, and some patients do too. And these patients, let me tell you, over the years I've recognized, they know who they are. They know they're special to you. You can fail with them 2 or 3 times, they still come back to you because they know they're special to you. I don't think that'll exist with AI. You know, Tom Jones, Teresa Jones, treat them the same. So I think there's certain advantages that are totally irrational, but totally delightful.
Yes, yes, indeed.
And important, critical to us. The reason, I mean, I think medicine is one of the underpinnings for why human life is so important. Because doctors make it important. We really pay attention to it. We spend time at night looking up this condition. What can I do for her? You know, which I'm not sure AI will need to do or would be motivated to do.
Can you give us maybe an example of a time when you took a decision which was paradoxically, logically, was more of your intuition, of your heart, and it proved to be genius, spectacular, or the solution for your patient?
Yeah. Well, osteoporosis is an example of that. I was in India with this expat group that I told you about, and I was leaving, and it was time for me to have a little party and invite everybody over to the penthouse I had rented. It was a penthouse on top of a hotel, beautiful gardens all around, and like a wood sprite, a very small, slender, humble man who took care of all the gardens. Not for me, for the gardens. And I had this party, and at the end of the party, I had little lanterns. And one lantern, I don't know what made me do this, I hung it out the window. So it was like shining light both in and out. It was apart from us, but illuminating us a little bit. And everybody went home, and I looked at that little light with its little candle in it. And I said to myself, yoga is good for osteoporosis. I sort of had an image, like a vision, talk about irrational, of Mr. Iyengar's bones. And they weren't grisly. It wasn't a hideous, wasn't a macabre or scary thing. Yeah. It was like alerting, enlightening to see them. So pure and fine and with such integrity. And it took me as a doctor maybe 20 years to have the guts and the comfort to say, I'm going to try it. And when I did, I think I've said this before, I told some of my friends and they said, you're crazy. You're going to break their bones, you know? Yeah. And so I did a pilot study in my office, which was spectacularly positive. I just divided my patients into the ones who had osteoporosis into 2 groups. One group I did nothing to. The other group I invited to come to my yoga sessions every week. All of them got DEXA scans when they started, and they all got them 2 years later. And so after work on Tuesdays, I would these people would come and I would teach them yoga. No injuries. And here's another irrational thing that happened. One of my kids walked by and looked in and said, Dad, what are you doing? And I said, I'm looking at this study. Are you going to publish it? I said, no, it's just to make sure that it's safe. He looked at it, he said, send me the data. So I sent him the data upstairs. He went upstairs. I looked at the data, and he came down 5 minutes later and said, Dad, it's significant. And that's how I first published it, and then I made 1,000 discs and just gave them away to people who wanted to use yoga versus osteoporosis. So it's got a completely irrational beginning, a vision. you know, and a completely logical end. Then I published the larger study 8 years later after doing all the work I had to do for it. So.
That is so encouraging. Thank you so much. It's so encouraging for everybody in the therapy field, doctors as well as yoga therapists.
I hope so, yeah.
Yes.
So now we have thousands, I mean, probably tens of thousands of people all over the place, like the way you're teaching. I'm not aware of that until you told me. And we've trained 600 teachers all over America and in about 10, 12 other countries who are using it, and God knows how many they're teaching, you know.
Yes.
So
there are a lot of students of mine
it's starting to make a dent. I mean, a dent.
Yes.
There are 200 million people in the world who have osteopenia or osteoporosis.
Yes.
Most of whom have neither the means, the you know, good therapy is neither close nor affordable.
Yes. Okay. Do you see the impact of AI medical advice in your daily practice right now? And what will be your advice on patients?
I don't see much now. I think it's coming. Maybe America is behind Europe in this. That we're getting there. But medicine in the United States is a medieval guild. Closely guarded, who gets in, what is said about it in an official way. And they haven't really, as far as I know, most patients do not have access to AI in a meaningful way where they use it medically. They may. I mean, for example, I went on AI day before yesterday and I asked them a question. How do I know if something I'm reading comes from AI? You know, fighting fire with fire. Let's use AI to understand more about AI. And they know better than I do. And it came up with a very perfunctory response. You know, it is very difficult to and it wasn't very helpful at all. And I think when it comes to medicine, depending on your level of ignorance, it can be extremely helpful. If you never heard of multiple myeloma, you're going to learn something you can trust, something definitive from AI. And I think AI is maybe the first, no, not the first, but it's a scientifically based foray into trustworthiness. I think its big thing is going to be that it's trustworthy.
Oh, that's
it seems to me not in any way partisan. There's no axis to grind. You know, it doesn't have children to feed. It doesn't have political views to sponsor. It could become quite objective. Yeah.
One of my concerns, where this question comes from, was also from the habit of self-diagnosing or of research online. And it started with Dr. Google.
Dr. Google.
And here actually is the direction where medical advice, actually, I believe, who takes care of the whole part of the whole body, not only one speciality. I think it is very, very important. So I was considering from this perspective, like people coming with their own idea of what they need or what is their problem. How do you
know? Well, you know, I want to ask Paulina this question. Paulina is as American as you or I, but she lived most of her life in Spain and in Chile. So patients must come to you. Paulina is an excellent yoga therapist now. When they come to you, and don't they want to know, you know, my elbow, it's starting to click. What does that mean? Yeah. So, and Paulina, while she's quite educated and extremely smart, she doesn't know the medical stuff. So do you feel AI would be useful for you, for the patients?
It could, but for the patients sometimes it could be very dangerous. They misuse,
interpret?
Yes, sometimes. And I don't know, sometimes the response is very simple, right? It's not that sophisticated. And you will get a good answer if you know exactly what you're looking for. But if you're broad spectrum of looking, like the elbow pain, right, could be anything, right? So
arthritis, cancer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They could convince themselves that they have something really bad going on, and it's not true. How do you get them out of there afterwards? So it's both ways.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed, it is like in the.
Now
the
we also
old
have Misa is also, let's ask Misa too. Misa is an MD. She has an advanced degree from Harvard. She's just come back from Tokyo a couple of days ago, and she's been working with me how many years? Like 8 years?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
She deserves a medal.
Thank you. Yeah. So to me, it's very useful, but on the other hand, we gotta be careful. For example, my elbow. Okay, we need to actually look at the whole body, right? Because how the posture is, what the occupation is, like a misuse or abuse of the body. And then that can be causing, it's not just here, right? But also like what other parts of the body is doing, because if one side is actually having some injury, the other side is working way too much. So that kind of information can ID, process everything, or, the person, patient, or whoever needs to give inputs. It's a lot, but the doctor, knows how to ask questions.
So what you're saying is really it takes a person to put it in the proper context. I mean, if it's arthritis, it's very likely going to be both elbows, not just one. If it's cancer, it'll only be one, but it'll probably be slow at growing like that. It won't just appear one day. It'll be like that. If it's a sports injury, that's where you get the overuse. Who knows about the overuse? Misa knows, because she's known this person for a while, So the answer is that it takes, like integrative medicine, you integrate the great history of legacy of medical knowledge with some type of personal knowledge of the actual patient and the more alternative medicine approaches. Well, in a way, IA is just another alternative medicine. It's much more technology based than many, but what we've done in the last 20 years really is medicine's, let's say it this way, medicine's credentials come from the fact that science has backed up what it says. Crystallography backed up DNA. Well, all kinds of X-rays with the physics behind it, and organic chemistry and biology have all backed up medicine. Well, now yoga is getting the same backup. It doesn't come from the same place, In a way it does. It all comes out of common sense. It all comes out of, I want to say, the interest that I had in mathematics coming from grammar. There really is a better solution. A man named George Lakoff, a linguist out at Berkeley, California, says he wrote a book called Where Mathematics Comes From, and in a way it's where everything comes from, is our sense of analogy, our sense of parity and balance. That's where justice comes from, possibly, and that's where grammar comes from, and it's where language comes from, and it's where AI comes from, and all the science that pertains there too. So I think it's that may be it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Loren Fishman. Really deeply grateful for your wisdom and for this interview.